Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome here to Thursday's edition of the devotion. And we're going to be in Job in chapter 2, verse 1 through 10. And so far, Pastor got us kicked off with it on Monday, and Brother Jody on Tuesday, and then Brother Ron last night there on Wednesday. And so we're going to start chapter 2 today. And we're going to cover the first 10 verses. So let's go ahead here and we'll get started. So Job chapter 2 says again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath he will give for his life. But put forth thy hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. Verse 6, And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord and smote him with sore bulls, from the sole of his foot to his crown. And he took him a potsherd and scraped himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of a foolish woman speakest. What, shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. Okay, and so again, I guess you could call this is now round 2 that Satan has come against Job. And again, I guess I like the way the devotion, the app put this here about being uncomfortable. And I'll be honest with you, Job is not one of my favorite books in the Bible because it is about a man suffering. And it is, as we see here, Satan has come and asked for permission to do this. But there is a great deal of things to learn here from this. And even in these, the first 3 devotions that we've done, or that the other guys have done, I've learned a lot and still learning. And I like the first part of this here, where once again, Satan and the sons of God, it says, have come to present themselves. Okay. So again, showing the sovereignty of God, that even Satan has to come and give a report. And he talks about in this, and gives that report. And the same thing is with us, that we will all stand and we're going to give a report one day on our stewardship, as J. Vernon McGee says. And I looked up that word stewardship. And one of the words that it kind of means is our ministry. And then I think a lot of people would opt out on that one and say, well, I'm not a minister, so that doesn't apply. But it does, because we all have a ministry as Christians. We are ministers of some sort, whether it's standing behind a pulpit or whatever, but we have a ministry that God has called us to, and we will give an account for that. But another word is our management, just exactly how we manage this life that Christ has entrusted with us. We will give an account. We will present ourselves, just as Satan was at this point in time. And then, as we taught Sunday night on the tools of Satan, the scouting report, and that Satan, and when he was asked, where he's been, and he said walking to and fro. And then we go back to what we talked about the other night in First Peter, when he says that, that's what Satan does. He's walking to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. And so now here he is, and he comes to Job, and he is going to attack Job again. We know that Job has already lost his wealth. He's lost his children. But he remains, his integrity remains intact for the Lord. But now Satan says, you let me come and affect his health, and then he'll turn away then. Okay. And again, I like what J. Vernon McGee says. He says, in essence, Satan is telling God that you're not worthy of being loved. In other words, the only reason Job loves you, or the only reason Job was being just and true to the Lord, was because he had been blessed. And he says, in essence, he was a paid lover. And he asks a question, what about us? Are we fair weather friends? Are we fair weather servants of the Lord, that we serve him when all is well? But then whether it be sickness or when things get tough on God, do we blame God? And so it causes us to look at ourselves, and that term of being a paid lover, because Satan, he knows our weaknesses, and he thought that, first of all, that it would be Job's wealth, and when he lost his wealth, or when he lost his children, then he would turn his back on God. And now he's come against him, and he's got these bulls all over him, from head to toe. And so Job is even, taking a piece of pottery and he's scraping the sores off. That's how much pain that he is in. But we see here at the end that Job still keeps his integrity, that he sinned not. Okay. And then the last thing that out of these first 10 verses here, at the very end, verses 9 and 10, we see another character show up, and that being Job's wife. And as I said at the beginning, learning from this still, and I saw something in this that I'd never seen before. Normally we see Job, and we know the story of Job, and obviously the book written after him. And as Pastor said on Monday, the whens, the wheres, the whys, and all that, a lot of unknowns here. But as he said, believes that Moses probably could have been a potential author of this. But and we know a lot about Job being a wealthy man who had just a lot of misery, I guess, come his way. Well, no doubt it was misery. And one thing that I left out here too is in 1 Corinthians 10:13, which talks about being tempted. And it says, there's no temptation taking you, but that such is common to man. And Job's form of temptations, or the things that came before Job, was a lot. It was a lot. But even from that, the why was Job tested and all this stuff here. And we see ultimately to bring God glory, to bring a closer relationship. And we see that Job is seeing that God is a great comforter. He's even telling his wife, are we only going to praise God in the good times, and then turn our back on him on the bad times? But I want to end with this right here, out of the Counselor's Bible, and I've shared out of it before in other devotions. And like I said, it's something that I hadn't seen before. And I listed it here on the slide as 2 ways to handle hardships. And it's talking about Job's wife. It said, shattered by the loss of her children and her wealth. And I never had thought about that. We talk about Job, and Pastor talked about, all the things, and Jody mentioned as well, all the things in which he had. And in essence, he's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He's, he's extremely wealthy. He has a lot of things, that, he has monopolized, that people depend upon Job and what he had um, to live from, for transportations or milk or whatever it might be. But you think about it from Job's wife, we see Job lost his children, but they have a mom as well. And it says, shattered by the loss of her children and her wealth, Job's wife was overwhelmed with grief and anger. As her husband agonized with the additional pain of bulls all over his body, she lashes out at Job and his God. In essence, she said, still hanging on to that God of yours. Lots of good that's doing. Ending your life would be better than living in this misery. And then it talks about that, do you still hold fast to your integrity? And she tells, curse God and die. And it says, such is a common reaction to suffering of those with no faith or awareness of God's higher purpose. While intense suffering can blind even the strongest believer to God's love and faithfulness, that blindness should only be temporary. Anger directed at God over a long term displays an unwillingness to trust him for his higher purpose. Anger denies both the sovereignty and the mercy of God. It says Satan is the author of suffering, pain, grief, and loss. And he hopes to use these weapons, and we talked about those the other night, to turn away people from God. It said with Job, Satan's plan didn't work. With Job's wife, however, it did. With people who understand that their lives are in God's hands, the suffering is no less intense, but the outcome is different. Instead of crying, curse God, they can say, the Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord, which was shared with us there in Job 1:21. So in the midst of brokenness, God is there and joins us in our pain and sorrow and shows us that his heart is for each one of us. And so we see here two ways in which pain, sorrow, the hardships of life can be handled. Job obviously suffered. Job's wife suffered as well. We know that physically, nothing came before her that is recorded in the Bible. The bulls is something that Job had to deal with as well. But still yet, the assets, the things that they had lost, and the children, she is grieving those. And in that grief, she has told Job it's better for him to die, that she would be, left alone. But still, she doesn't see any benefit in serving God. And Job, however, says that even through this, that God is faithful. And that we can't just serve God on the mountaintops. It's in the valleys as well where we grow. And sometimes that's the purpose of the things that we go through. And through those valleys, we know from Psalms 23 that in those valleys, there's a lot of lessons that we can learn. It's not always going to be in the mountaintop experience, but sometimes in the valleys, in the darkness of life, in the dark times of life, our light is able to shine even brighter. Now, do we like it? No. Jason doesn't like it. I can say that much. I like, when things are going good. I like when things are going smoothly. I don't like to face the unknown and controversies and all these things. But yet we deal with those things because God's got a purpose. God's got a plan. And it's always for us to grow in him. Brother Ron mentioned that one thing about the pandemic, that God's word's going out, it's more readily available. It's everywhere and dealing with the tough times. And so I pray that you got something out of this. As I said before, there's two ways in which we can deal with hardships when they come our way. We can be Job and be faithful and keep our trust in the Lord, knowing that he's not going to put more on us than we can handle. But when our strength runs out, his kicks in and he's right there for us. His strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. or we can handle it like Job's wife, and we can bail out on God when things are tough. And I pray that's not what we do, because go back to what we said at the very beginning, that we all are going to present ourselves before God someday, and we're going to give a report on our stewardship. So I pray that, I don't pray that we deal with the things of Job, but whatever comes our way, may we be Job's in it, and may we keep our integrity, and not curse God, not sin because of the hardships of life. Okay, I pray you got something out of this. God bless you. We love you all, and we hope to see you Sunday.